Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asatya Shatarine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asachari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Radhanata Radha Radhanata Radhe Jaya Radha Radhanata Radha Radhanata Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Hare Krishna. So this evening we're reading from What is the Difficulty? Pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, written by one of his personal servants, Shruti Kirti Prabhu. So we'll be continuing from pastime number 38. This pastime is called In India, Still There Is Some Culture. December 18th, 1972, Mahadevia Flat, Mumbai, India. Before Srila Prabhupada's quarters were available in Juhu, he stayed at the home of a life member named Kartika Mahadevia. Mahadevia and his wife Gauri had two daughters named Preeti and Radha and a son named Kirtan. At the time Srila Prabhupada visited, Kirtan was 13 and Preeti was around 16. The facilities were first class and Srila Prabhupada was very comfortable. The Mahadevia family was very gracious and they gave Srila Prabhupada the master bedroom. He was very comfortable there. A wonderful sea breeze blew in through the open door of his balcony. We had the bedroom across the hall. Every morning, Shamsundar would borrow Kartika's ambassador car and drive Srila Prabhupada and I to the waterfront area for his morning walk. The pavement was wide and not crowded. One day while walking, we passed a man lying down at the edge of the sidewalk. This was, unfortunately, a common sight on the streets of Bombay. See that man lying there? Srila Prabhupada asked. He is dead. Srila Prabhupada continued walking without further comment. 1 hour later, we passed him again as we walked back to the car. The man hadn't moved. Srila Prabhupada walked by without further comment. After completing one morning walk, we returned to the ambassador car, and no matter how hard he tried, Shamsundar could not get the key to work in the ignition. He tried for several minutes. Srila Prabhupada, something is wrong with this car, he said. This key isn't working. I'll go get a cab and I'll be right back. He left Srila Prabhupada and I sitting on the back seat of the car. We both sat there calmly chanting japa. There were always cabs around even at this time of the morning. Since coming to India, I was getting used to situations not going as planned. After a few minutes, two well-dressed Indian men opened both front doors of the car and sat down in the front seat. I became a bit concerned. Srila Prabhupada, smiling, appeared very calm and began a conversation with them in Hindi. Suddenly, they put their key in the ignition and the car immediately started. Srila Prabhupada turned to me laughing and exclaimed, "We are in their car." They drove away. I finally realized that we had been sitting in the wrong car. This is not so hard to imagine. 30 years later, the ambassadors still all look the same, although they have since added a few colors. The gentleman insisted on taking Srila Prabhupada back to his flat. Srila Prabhupada apologized and spoke to them during the entire journey. When we arrived, he said, "Please come up and take some prasad." "No, we have to go to work," they replied. "We have business meetings. Thank you very much, Swamiji." This is the difference between India and America, Srila Prabhupada told me after getting out of the car. In America, they would have said, "Hey, what are you doing here? Get out of my car." They may possibly beat you, whereas in India, still there is some culture. In India, when they see a sadhu, still they have some respect. But in your country, they kick you out. They say, "Get out of my car." It is interesting to note that even in this situation, Srila Prabhupada tried to get them to take prasad. This is something I saw on countless occasions. Srila Prabhupada wanted to see that everyone he came in contact with received prasadam. In November of 2005, my wife and I returned to Mr. Mahadevia's flat since it is a place of pilgrimage. I was also eager to meet his family again and see if they might remember me. Kartikeya had passed away a few years ago and his daughters were married with their families. However, I was in for a pleasant surprise. Again, they were very gracious and set a time when when Kirtan would be home from work so that I could see their flat. They did not know who was coming to visit, only that it was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I arrived at the door at 4:30 p.m. and I was greeted by Kirtan and his mother. I immediately recognized Gauri but did not know if she would remember me. Kirtan, who was 13 when I was last there, asked me my name. When I told him Shruti Kirti, they both smiled with delight. It was amazing. They were so happy to see me after 32 years and remembered me with fondness. He grabbed my hand and shook it vigorously as his mother continued to smile with surprise. They both remembered me so well. Kirtan told me that he liked me the most out of all Srila Prabhupada's disciples. His mother agreed and said I was always quiet. Then it became more exciting. Kirtan left the room and quickly returned with an old electric typewriter with a great history. It was the typewriter that had been around the world several times with Srila Prabhupada. Thousands of letters were typed on it and then signed by Srila Prabhupada. He himself typed letters on it. What was more interesting was how they acquired it. Srila Prabhupada and his entourage stayed at their flat for 6 weeks. They opened up their house and hearts to Srila Prabhupada, his entourage, and other disciples that frequented their home. They gave us shelter, fed us every day, and never asked for anything in return. Before leaving, Srila Prabhupada offered to sell them the typewriter, which Kartikeya bought for about 500 rupees. Last year, a devotee in Bombay offered to buy them a new computer system in return for the old royal typewriter. Kirtan laughed and said he would not trade it for a Boeing 747 jet. I sat at the table and typed a thank you letter to them for taking such nice care of me for so long. Kirtan typed me an invitation letter to come and stay with them again. Amazingly, on rare occasions, he still uses the machine for his business. We sat for some time in the living room, and Gauri told me how wonderful it was remembering all the happy times they had with Srila Prabhupada in their house. Then she told me to wait a minute, and she left the room. She returned quickly with something in her hands that was wrapped tightly in a thick plastic bag. She handed it to me and told me to open it. I could not imagine what else they might have. I found my way through the bag and pulled out a large portable reel-to-reel tape recorder. I immediately knew what it was. It was the same recorder I took on hundreds of morning walks, recording the transcendental words of His Divine Grace. The same recorder that I'd used to record Srila Prabhupada's lectures all over India, including all the lectures in Vrindavan in 1972 during the month of Kartik. I could not believe it. She was so happy to show it to me. She had kept this treasure safely in her bedroom all these years. It was complete with all its cables and still in the black leather carrying case. Even though they were just a few hundred yards from the sea, the metal frame was still rust-free because of how carefully it had been kept. I was so overwhelmed. I did not even ask how they managed to get this jewel. I told them I could understand that the typewriter belonged to them, but smiling, I proclaimed, "This tape recorder is mine." I thanked her for taking such good care of it and asked for it back. Both the mother and son smiled at me and ignored my request. I sat with it on my lap for several minutes, recalling the vast amount of services it had done. It was such a heavy machine. I did not know how I managed to carry it on the morning walks every day. Now my only wish is that I get the opportunity to do it life after life. We took some pictures of their treasures and some group photos as well before leaving that afternoon, promising to return again soon. I again experienced how you touched the hearts of everyone you encountered. The room was filled with smiling faces as everyone happily remembered your activities in their flat. We all came to life as we spoke about your early efforts in Bombay, planting seeds of devotion everywhere you went. One of those seeds quickly took root. By your mercy, one of Kartikeya's daughters is an initiated devotee in ISKCON. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Pastime 39, entitled See the Scar. December 27th, 1972, Mahadeviya Flat, Mumbai, India. One day, while massaging Srila Prabhupada, he pointed to a scar on his leg. "See this scar?" he asked. "That happened when I was young. I was in front of the house and I had matches. Somehow I started some fire and my clothing immediately went up in flames. It was very bad. I did not know what would have happened, but out of nowhere, some man appeared and put out the flames. Then he left." Srila Prabhupada did not say anything more about the gentleman. He gave me the impression that the person who appeared out of nowhere was not an ordinary person. Again, I felt so privileged to hear such things from Srila Prabhupada. He gave me a rare glimpse into his life, always tempered with his great humility. I never dared to ask him to be more specific. Having been with Srila Prabhupada for so long, I knew he had told me as much as he wanted me to know. In the 2 years I was with him, Srila Prabhupada never stated in my presence that he came from the spiritual world. In the 2 years I was with him, every day I was more convinced that he was sent to us by the mercy of Lord Krishna to spread of Lord Chaitanya to spread his Sankirtan movement to every town and village. Srila Prabhupada, please allow me to serve you life after life. Srila Prabhupada was very merciful and always encouraged us by saying we could become Krishna conscious in this lifetime. He taught by example. He never asked us to do anything that he did not do himself. He rose early, chanted japa, and read Srimad Bhagavatam. He never acted superior to his disciples. He allowed us to be comfortable with him by acting as if he were practicing Krishna consciousness rather than being the embodiment of it. It is my duty to chastise because you are my disciple, he often said. We are his children, and his position was and still is to teach us. This is a very interesting pastime because Srila Prabhupada is such an embodied soul, coming directly from the spiritual world, but he's pointing out something so, in some way, trivial or material, just a scar on his body. So we can understand that by the process of devotional service, even though we have a material body, a nature, conditioning, a way of thinking, but when we take to the practice of Krishna consciousness, we can elevate ourselves to something so much more higher and spiritual, as Srila Prabhupada is teaching us here. That even though he has a material body, there is no limit to what you can do and how much you can serve with your material body if you serve Krishna correctly. Pastime 40, entitled, Maybe My Father Knew. January 6th, 1973, Mahadevia Flat, Mumbai, India. A morning massage with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada often related his childhood pastimes. One story he told happened when he was a very young boy, walking in the marketplace with his mother. Srila Prabhupada saw some toy guns. I saw the guns and immediately I had to have them, he said. When his mother wouldn't get him one, he started to cry. All right, I will buy you a gun, his mother told him. Srila Prabhupada looked at the gun in one hand and then looked at his other empty hand. I do not have a gun for it, he said. I must have one for each hand. No, his mother said. However, even as a young child, Srila Prabhupada had a great amount of determination. When telling the story, Srila Prabhupada said, at that point, I laid down on the street and started to kick my hands and feet and bang my head on the ground. He referred to this behavior as a tantrum. Pointing to a mark on his forehead, he said, the scar is from that time. I was very sure that I had to have 2 guns. Thus she got me the other gun. When I wanted something, I had to have it, he explained. My mother would always get it. Otherwise, I would tell my father, and he would get very upset with my mother, and then she would have to do it. In a reflective mood, Srila Prabhupada said, I do not know. Maybe my father knew. From this brief statement, I concluded that Srila Prabhupada's father might have been aware of his son's exalted position as a pure devotee of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada had fulfilled the prediction of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur to spread the chanting of the Maha Mantra around the world. I felt overwhelmed to be with him at that moment. He would never make such a statement publicly, although all of his disciples knew he was responsible for doing it. No one had done it until now, and no one will ever be able to take credit for it in the future. He wrote volumes of books describing the glories of the Supreme Lord and his devotees, but always remained the humble servant of the Lord. Pastime 41, January 10th, 1973. During my first tour of India in the fall and winter of 1972, Malati Devi cooked for Srila Prabhupada. She was the wife of Shyam Sundar Das, Srila Prabhupada's secretary. Their daughter Saraswati was about 3 years old at the time. She was the most fortunate little girl. She was the only person I knew who was able to go in and out of Srila Prabhupada's quarters unannounced. She seemed to appear out of nowhere like a tiny Narada Muni in different temples around the world. She always ended up in Srila Prabhupada's room. Then as quickly as she appeared, she disappeared. He enjoyed her company. Sometimes she sat on his lap, other times like a grandfather, he affectionately teased her. She always had prasadam in her hands or mouth. Srila Prabhupada observed this and supplied her with sweets from a container on his desk. One day, as I massaged Srila Prabhupada, Saraswati entered his room. As usual, she was eating. Srila Prabhupada laughed. "You are always eating," he said. "You know what you remind me of, Saraswati?" She looked at him with a mouthful of food and shook her head. "You remind me of a New York City garbage truck," he told her. Do you know of the garbage trucks in New York City?" She nodded. "In New York City," Srila Prabhupada continued, "they have these big garbage trucks. They go down the street and the workers put the garbage in. Stretching one arm over his head and the other towards the floor," Srila Prabhupada said, "they go down the street and put garbage inside the big mouth of the truck, and then the truck goes zoom, and it closes and the truck eats it. Then it goes and opens back up like this." He imitated the up and down crunching movement of the jaws of the truck, extending his arms in an opening and closing motion. "Your mouth is like that. You are always putting things in." Saraswati was amused, but disappeared again. Perhaps she went to get more prasadam from her mother. I continued massaging Srila Prabhupada, once again amazed by his greatness. I wondered what pious activity Saraswati must have performed to be able to play with his divine grace on such an intimate level. My witnessing Srila Prabhupada's Leela was certainly a sign of his causeless mercy. Srila Prabhupada's playful affection continues to soften this stone-like heart. Pastime 42. Kirti means expert. For 6 weeks, Srila Prabhupada stayed at the flat of Kartikeya Mahadevya. From the ground floor, there was a very small 2-man elevator that was used to get to the room. One morning, Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Goswami, and I went towards the elevator on the way to the morning walk. As Srila Prabhupada's servant, I expected to get into the elevator with him, but Tamal Krishna Goswami entered first, so there was no room for me. As the doors closed, I quickly turned and ran down 2 flights of stairs. I arrived at the elevator doors just in time to open them for Srila Prabhupada and help him out. As we walked away, Tamal Krishna Maharaj looked at me and laughed. "Srila Prabhupada," he said, "Shruti Kirti is really expert." "Yes," Srila Prabhupada replied. "Kirti means expert." He continued towards the car without commenting further on the subject. Being Srila Prabhupada's servant was filled with adventure and suspense. Whatever was going on seemed to be filled with a certain electricity. Every month I had the opportunity to shave Srila Prabhupada's head with the electric clippers. Srila Prabhupada was not a passive recipient during this process. He moved around, and that made me more frightened. He very kindly helped me to be Prabhupada conscious. "Turning the shaver off in between each stroke so it doesn't get hot," he instructed. This was easy. However, the tricky part was shaving around his ears. I was very careful. By Krishna's grace, there was never a mishap during the service, and it helped me to be more Prabhupada conscious. Many devotees were delighted when I distributed Srila Prabhupada's hair. I'll stop there. The RT will start now. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande.